Every couple in the universe has dysregulating moments in their marriage. We will do one of 4 fight or flight activity: blame, shame, control, or escape.
Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm Brad Rhodes.
And I'm Marilyn Rhodes. We're here to help you build a marriage that's stronger, more connected, and full of grace.
I'm Rick Dayton, joining Brad and Marilyn as we bring you weekly conversations designed to inspire and equip you to live intentionally in your marriage.
We'll share practical tips, powerful stories, and strategies to help you and your spouse grow closer and thrive together.
So whether you're just starting out or have been married for years, there's always room to grow. Let's do this together. This is the Grace Marriage Podcast.
This is Brad Rhodes with the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm honored to have Ron and Nan Deal on the podcast. Somebody that's works in the marriage field for years, both blended family and general marriages. They have a new book out called The Mindful Marriage that I'm told is an amazing resource. And we're going to learn a lot about that resource in this podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your family, and I understand that the book's written somewhat out of your story. So why don't we let's hear a little bit of, I guess we'll just ask the question, what's the deal?
Love it. It's written out of our story, just a little bit. So page 1 of chapter 1 is the day that our marriage blew up, and Nan said, get us some help. And I said, long story short, there's a little more in the book, but I'll just say there's one guy I'd really trust, but there's no way we can get in to see him. We lived in the same town as Dr. Terry Hargrave, who was, a bit of a hero and a theoretician, and he'd written prolifically in professional literature about marriage and family therapy from a Christian perspective. And I just said, there's no way we can get in to see him. I'm sure he's got his huge waiting list. But the next morning at 9 a.m., we were sitting in his office. Mm-hmm. And here's the long story short. What we began a journey learning there, he continued to develop on a professional level, on a clinical level, has been training clinicians all around the world for the last 20 years in this. We have partnered with he and his wife, who's also a therapist, to bring those principles down to the everyday average couple. Like the mindful marriage is the over-the-counter, user-friendly version of some really deep scholarly work, and it has changed us, and we're just excited to be able to offer it and help change other people.
That's awesome. Let's make it clear to you. You've written a lot of resources on blended families, but this resource is for all marriage. It's a concept that can help any marriage at any stage. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how this concept helped you in kind of introducing the concept?
Go ahead.
I feel like my role here in the book is to make it accessible to the regular people. Because like Ron said, it's Terry and Sharon Hargrave's work. And Terry is brilliant as far as I'm concerned and has a PhD. And Ron and Sharon are both therapists. And here I am, little old me. But I was a willing participant to share our story and the journey and how God has used this tool to bless us so tremendously. And not only in your marriage, but man, I use this with people every day, and I use it in my relationship with my adult children. And it's just, I can get dysregulated. I can get dysregulated really quickly. And it's just something that I use every day to just get regulated and get grounded to where I can bring my best self to the relationship.
Here's the thing that we know, Brad. Every couple in the universe, including us professional people who, quote, should know better, every couple in the universe has dysregulating moments in their marriage. Every person on the planet gets dysregulated a few times a day. Some of us just stay there.
Well, tell our listener what dysregulated means first, just to make sure they understand.
It's a big fancy word that basically means discombobulated. You lose yourself. Have you ever had a moment where you look back and you go, man, I just handled that in all the wrong ways. Why did I go there? It's the same thing Paul did in Romans 7 when he says, why do I keep on doing the things I don't want to do? I know better than this, but I find myself in this same spot over and over again. Well, we've learned a lot in the last 20 years about how the brain works and how the body is tied to all of that and reactivity. And it turns out there's actually a neurological layer to the whole flesh that we talk about in Scripture. And that neurological layer goes something a little bit like this. I perceive something, real or imagined. I perceive something that feels like a threat to being loved or to my sense of safety in the world. And so it might be a look from her, a criticism, that it taps into something. It triggers something in me. And my brain does this funny thing. The thinking part of your brain literally shuts off, goes offline, what's called the prefrontal cortex. And then what happens is your limbic system kicks into gear and it says, fight or flight, fight or flight. This is a dangerous moment for us in our marriage, in myself. It doesn't have to be prompted by marriage. It could be, somebody crosses the double yellow line in your life. You don't have to have a committee form to decide what to do about that car headed your way. Your limbic system kicks in, fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight. But the same thing happens in a moment of, wow, you just said something that cut me. And my body and brain will begin to react in a pre-programmed manner that was basically put into me before you're age 2 or 3 for most of us. And we will do one of 4 fight or flight activity: blame, shame, control, or escape. I will blame her for what would just happen. I will shame myself for what she looked at me funny. I must have done something wrong here. That's shaming yourself. I will control the moment, or I will escape this painful moment, and I will go somewhere else, look into my phone, turn to porn, look for alcohol, find something to gamble. Like, there's predictable ways that we react when we feel that moment of threat. Well, guess what? Blame, shame, control, or escape just makes things worse in marriage. It doesn't help at all. And you know what? When I do that, it's going to trigger her reactivity, her blame, shame, control, or escape. And now we have what we call our couple pain cycle. And it's just driven by pain and reactivity, and we are making things worse. Everybody on the planet does this. What we've learned is fundamentally that's my old self. That's my part of that dynamic is mine to manage. I have to steward my reactivity and my pain. It's not her job to fix me. It's my job to deal with that. And when I start dealing with that, it helps us take a turn and move in a better direction. What we're seeking is peace in our relationship, joy, love, kindness, goodness, I bring the best me, she brings the best her. That gives us the best usness. But only when I learn how to manage my reactivity. I mean, that's in a nutshell, not just what we point people to, but we walk them through with exercises in the book. So you learn your pain cycle, your couple pain cycle, what your blame, shame, control, escape looks like. You learn how to turn it off, and you learn how to, cooperate with the Holy Spirit who wants to change that part of you.
Yeah, amen. That I've seen in marriage. Marriage is so synergistic, so when you have one spouse that's in the wrong spot, it has an impact on the other spouse and pushes them to the wrong spot. So it's like, I've told many couples, I said, she's a worse wife because of you. And then she'll look at me and say, but to be fair, you're a much worse husband because of her. And then I kind of explain, which you called that cycle. But I find that when the cycle switches, then it's got a positive synergy. Yes. It shifts from, it shifts that spiritual leader helpmate model where God's design for marriage plays out, where they both become more like Jesus because they're together, as opposed to them both becoming less like Jesus because of one another. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most certainly.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I mean, I think all of us know on our best day, we live out that model and God's living through us, and it's marvelous. But everybody on the planet has moments where you don't live up to what you know to do. And why do we do that? It turns out there's some really good, important things to know that's going on below the surface that have to do with your brain, have to do with how your body is programmed to respond, and how you can rewire that. This is the being transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your mind can rewire your brain. That's what we're helping people do.
And it's interesting you say that, because we teach that, Romans 6:14 says sin will have no dominion over you because you're under grace, not law. And I said, so it doesn't say sin will have no dominion over you because you're going to develop utter behavioral consistency.
Yeah.
Because you're under grace. And when we first teach grace, like, Jesus responded with our rebellion with love and sacrifice and told us to love one another as we've been loved.
Mm.
I said, so people say, well, that's hard. And I said, you're right. It is. But over time it gets easy because your brain gets rewired and your natural responses become more positive. Because initially when I tried to put our marriage under grace, it took a real will. Now it's almost me giving Marilyn grace and pursuing Marilyn when she's struggling is like almost a subconscious activity now. And I think it goes into what you're saying because you kind of rewire your natural response system.
That's exactly what's happening.
That's true. When we went into the counseling office in 2007, all I wanted was Ron to stop doing what Ron was doing that made me so dysregulated. I wanted Dr. Hargrave, Terry, I call him, to fix him. And little did I know, I needed to fix myself, or Holy Spirit needed to do that, as you say, with the grace and learning to live under that and then to give that out. But it is work and it is practice. And I would say to anybody who's picking up the book, do the exercises and do the work, because it's so worth having this tool in your toolbox for sure.
Well, I tell people, they're like, Brad, what you're saying is hard. And I say, with all due respect, it looks like what you're doing is harder.
Yeah.
I said, and it's funny that you called me and I didn't call you. Because it's like, not doing it correctly and not having control of your emotions and being dysregulated and being cold and that's a much harder life than the short-term pain of extending grace and pursuit in a moment. Now it does seem hard in the moment. It takes humility. It takes, it takes prayer. It takes spinning, but ultimately it's a much better existence. I told him I was immediately happier when I put Marilyn under grace.
Yeah. I like me a whole lot more now than I did back then. I just felt like I was so under oppression, and I lived under a banner of bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness. And I like me. I like my relationship with the Lord so much better. And I definitely love what it has done in our marriage. Not to say that we don't get dysregulated, but we do. But boy, resolve is so much quicker than it used to be.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Listen to the agency in what she's saying. Brad, I'm convinced most of us spend our entire married life waiting for our spouse to do, to become, to portray something that makes me feel loved and safe in such a way that I no longer have to ever get irritable or angry with you, that I don't ever have to be critical. I don't ever have to be disappointed. If you finally get it right, I'll be finally loved and in a better place. We spend our whole life waiting for our spouse to do something they cannot do for us. Nan cannot steward my pain. Only I can. This is Matthew 7. We're looking a whole lot at specs. We're really good at that. Our whole culture, I would even contend that much of marriage ministry over the last 50 years has taught people that you got to love the other person in such a way that if you just meet their needs, then they will meet your needs. That is not the way it works. I can't get her to do that for me. I've got to manage me. And when I begin to take ownership of that, it makes me like me more, because I stop being the person I really don't like.
Well, it's basically if you don't do that, you're handing control over your life to another individual. You're basically, and I tell people, God didn't design you to be parasitic, where you pull from another person to feel okay about yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
God designed you to be a giver. Our testimony in our marriage is Marilyn came to me and said, we were like in a real bad spot. She said, I don't need you. And it's like, it hit me wrong. But then she goes, and will you forgive me? She goes, I've been asking for you what only Christ can give me. She goes, Jesus Christ is fully sufficient. He's sufficient for my beauty, my joy, my security, my everything. I don't need you for anything. She goes, I'll do my best to be your godly wife. But she goes, I'm off your roller coaster in my joy, my security, my beauty. It's no longer hitched to how you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So basically she cut the cord and dropped it. I was no longer controlling her spirit daily.
Listen
and
to the agency of that. Like that is growing up into Christ. That is growing up into Christ, which is what the New Testament insists that we do.
Yeah.
We don't get to just stay as we are. We need to grow up. That's what discipleship is. We need to grow up constantly into Christ. And as Nan said earlier, this side of heaven, we're not going to stop having triggers. Triggers are triggers. And my old flesh wants to constantly resurrect itself back up into my life. And this is a daily sacrifice and trying to put on self-control. At the end of the day, this is about self-control. Me putting on self-control for me so that I bring the best me to the next moment. I may have had a bad me a second ago. It's my job to get in a better place, to bring a better me to the next moment of our marriage. And it's a game changer when you can get there.
Yeah, it's marriage doesn't fix you, it just exposes you. And you expect it to fix you because when you date, it seems like it does because life is so euphoric, so happy, so everything else. Then you get married, it wears off, and you can't stand each other, and you don't know what happened.
Right.
And that's what happened with us. And then I think Marilyn's big revelation, the sufficiency of Christ, and then God probably saving me is what transformed our marriage. So I love what you're saying. You're basically pushing people, rely on Jesus, love one another, don't be just codependent on one another. Is that
exactly?
That's it. And dig under the skin to find out what's going on in your brain so you can understand it and do something about it. Because I really am convinced we are far more controlled by pain that we're not even aware of than we realize. And so once you start digging, this is a deep dive book. We didn't come up with the elementary or the fundamental principles of it. Dr. Hargrave did. So we're just bragging on his work. This is a deep dive study and book, and it will make a difference.
How do you dig below the surface? I mean, like, so the listeners listen to this and say, well, how do I unearth that stuff? How do I know you read the book, but what would you tell them where to start?
Yeah. So an example, when you find yourself going, oh man, I'm just sick of that. And you're talking to yourself about your spouse. That's a moment to go, wait a minute, I need to look in the mirror. I need to look at the log in my own eye. What just triggered for me? What am I feeling? And what do I normally do with that feeling? That little process is neurological at this point in your life. And you don't think about it like driving a car. You don't think about all the things you got to do, turn signal, gas, brake, all the stuff you're looking at. You've learned it. It's muscle memory at this point. You have brain memory, if I can say it that way. You have a neurological rut in your brain that will go from feeling a painful feeling to a reactive response in a nanosecond. And you're not actually thinking about doing it. It just happens. You can actually slow that down, put on self-control about it, and begin to remap how your brain is actually wired that moves you towards love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But getting from A to B is the challenge. And that's what this book's going to do. It's going to break it down for you. You're going to actually map and sequence your pain cycle. You're going to map and sequence the peace cycle, what you're moving toward, your old self and your new self. And we're going to give you a 4-step process to help you bridge between the old and the new.
And the couple need to each do their work. So I'm not advocating, hey, buy 2 copies. That's not what I'm here to do. But get a copy and both of you do the work. So one of you is writing in the book and maybe you make a copy of the exercises, but actually doing the exercise. And I'll be candid and I'll be a little revealing here. When I was doing the pain and then what does Nan do in the pain, I was always still looking at, well, I know what the pain is because I know who caused the pain. He's sitting right here. And it's like sometimes some of those pains and triggers did not start with Ron. They may have started with family of origin stuff, or it may have started in another relationship if you've previously been married before. And so I had to honestly take a good, hard look with the Lord's help. And I would say to anybody who's going to dive into the pain and what do you do in the pain, pray about it beforehand and just ask the Lord to just show you and help you. Don't be afraid. But it is some work to go there, but I think it's valid and it's worth going there. So you're going to map out your pain and what you do in the pain. But then you're also going to take a turn and you're going to go, well, but what's the truth And how can I walk in the truth? And so taking a hard look at that, but then also then asking the Lord, well, show me your truths about what's going on with me and in relationship with the two of us. But some people, when we go and we speak, and we've done some conferences before, we've had people come up and go, man, I guess I'm going to have to deal with some of my stuff. And it's like, yes, we are asking you to do some deep dives. It's not just I'm going to read this over a weekend and, that was a good book and that might help. It really is a tool that you got to take out and you've got to practice using. And you got to practice using it over and over again in order to get really comfortable with. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And this book is extremely practical. The exercises are absolute gold. And if you'll do the work, it will take you on a journey.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like helping people move from just a reactive relationship driven by emotion to an intentional relationship driven by obedience to truth.
Yes. That's it. And we all know, every Christian knows, you hear a good sermon on Sunday and you go, man, I should be a little more like that. I need to put that into my life, and we leave. And, 2 months later, we're back. Yeah, I need to work on that. What is the gap between the knowing and the doing? Well, it turns out there's this whole process, that neurological layer that's underneath, that when you see it, you can't unsee it anymore. And this is super practical to help you deal to get from the old to the new. So it's no longer this gap that just perpetuates and you never change, but you can actually move through it.
Well, and to develop new capacity takes work. I mean, I tell people, like, if you want to get stronger, you can't just listen to a bunch of sermons on strength and exercise.
You got to practice.
You got to put on the work, and you got to do it consistently over a long period of time. And it's always the first 2, 3, 4 weeks in the gym, or the hardest 2, 3, 4 weeks in the gym, because it's developing a new it's breaking down muscle. It's exercising where it's weak. But then the longer you do it, the easier it is to go to the gym, the stronger you are, and things you couldn't do before you can now do, but you're developing new capacities all the time. And I think that people that go to the gym a lot start liking it. And people that start growing in their marriage and developing new capacity, even having more enjoyable relationships, they find that they enjoy marriage investment and work more than those that are just starting out.
That's right.
Yes.
So my encouragement to you is get the book. And my enjoyment is do the work. And once you do the work, I've said before in this podcast that, like, if working on my marriage, give me as many shifts as you want. I mean, spending time with my best friend, developing a better relationship, enjoying Marilyn, those things. Once you kind of turn a corner in marriage, there'll be no job you like better than working on your marriage.
Brad, we're doing a mindful marriage conference for churches, and it's a lot of fun.
It is.
We're getting ready to head to New Zealand to do a speaking and teaching tour there with Family Life New Zealand. And we just appreciate and value the opportunity to engage and interact with people. One quick story that comes to mind. We were in Oklahoma City.
That was great.
And this couple comes out. They waited in line to talk to us when the event was over. And they were the last couple, as I recall. And they said, we just came to tell you this stuff works. So we said, what do you mean? I mean, it's been 20 minutes since the event ended. What do you mean? She said, we were in the back row. They said, it's time to go get your kids. And my husband and I started having an argument about who's getting what, where, how. You do this. No, you do that.
And she said, he did that thing. And then I was off to the races. But then he said, but then we both kind of calmed down and we did what you said over these last couple of days. And they looked at each other and they went, and it worked. And they said, what normally we would have done would have taken 2 weeks to disravel and untangle. And they were just giddy about it, and also had such joy, and then kind of looked at each other like, I can't believe we just did that. Like, that worked. You know?
No, we don't want to give the false impression that one and done and you're fine.
Right.
We have been wrapping our lives around this material now for many years, and yes, we've written a book and we're talking and teaching about it all the time, and we get dysregulated. Triggers happen. This side of heaven, that doesn't stop. There are moments where I totally missed my opportunity to be my new self, and I go to my old self and it's ugly. It's not good. I'm a really good blamer controller. Out of those 4, I'm really good at 2. I PhD level at 2 of them. Okay. And when I'm bad, I'm really bad. And I have an opportunity to slow it down, take a breath, go, wait a minute. what am I supposed to do here, and put on that new self. And we just, what used to take Nan and I 2 or 3 weeks, and we wouldn't even really resolve it. We just sort of set it aside and move on. Like literally in a few minutes, we resolved it, or we didn't even go there at all, and we didn't have to resolve any. Like, it has been a game changer for us, and we've been exposed to the best marriage and family material for the last 35 years. That we've been married 39, that we've been soaking in, and this is the stuff that has changed us the most.
Well, get the book, The Mindful Marriage. Ron and Nan, thank you for being on the podcast. Grace Marriage, our big thing, like you're teaching, great marriages don't happen by accident. Marriage crashes on autopilot. I mean, marriages grow and you get good biblical resources and you work at it together and you do it consistently over a long period of time, and God gets more and more glory. So get the book, Mindful Marriage. If you're in Grace Marriage in your church, attend your sessions, bring marriage ministry to your church. Church needs to be intentional with marriage. Couple needs to be intentional with marriage. And it's so honored to be with somebody that's helped so many people do just that. So thank you guys for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us on the Grace Marriage Podcast. We really hope you're feeling inspired to take intentional steps to grow in your marriage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us spread the message of grace and reach even more couples.
And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us and helps others discover the podcast.
To learn more about how you can grow in your marriage, visit us at gracemarriage.com. Keep building stronger, grace-filled marriages.
We'll see you next week on the Grace Marriage Podcast. Until then, keep growing in grace.